Emily Harrington, The Fall on El Capitan. On the morning of November 24, 2020, elite climber Emily Harrington stood at the base of El Capitan's Golden Gate route. She had trained for this moment for years, but just 2 hours later, she would be lying motionless, bleeding from the head, clinging to a ledge 1,500 feet in the air, barely alive. Emily wasn't new to El Capitan. She had climbed its walls before, but this time, it was different. She was attempting something only a few women had ever done, a free climb of the 3,000-foot granite monolith in under 24 hours. The air was crisp that morning, still, quiet. The valley below was cloaked in soft mist, her breath steamed in the cold. Her fingers, already chalked, trembled slightly, from nerves or cold, maybe both. With her partner Adrian Ballinger managing ropes below, Emily began the ascent. The early pitches went smoothly. Finger jams, smears, careful movements. Her body moved with precision, like a machine conditioned by years of discipline. But somewhere around the 500-foot mark, that rhythm broke. It happened fast. Emily was nearing a familiar section, a small traverse across a slab. She'd climbed it before, but this time her foot slipped. She didn't fall far, just 40 feet. But it was enough. Her rope caught her, but her head slammed into the rock. Her helmet cracked, blood trickled down her face, her vision blurred. She dangled in the air, spinning slowly, dazed, then went limp. Adrian, still below, heard the impact before he saw her fall. He shouted. No answer. For a terrifying moment, he thought she was dead. Emily regained consciousness on a ledge. Her head throbbed. Her vision swam. The granite around her blurred in and out of focus. She was bleeding. Not badly, but enough to scare her. She could hear Adrian yelling from far below, but she couldn't yell back. Her throat was dry. Her chest hurt when she breathed. Time blurred. 15 minutes passed, then 30. She stayed still, assessing herself. No broken limbs, no spinal injury, but a concussion, almost certainly. The real danger wasn't over. She was only halfway up. She couldn't downclimb, and rappelling in that condition was dangerous. One slip, one wrong anchor, and she'd fall again. This time for good. The wind picked up. Her hands shook violently, not just from cold, but from fear. Adrian began climbing to reach her. Each minute felt longer than the last. By the time Adrian reached her, nearly an hour had passed. She was still conscious. Barely. He checked her pupils. They were uneven. She was disoriented, slurring her words. And then she said something that chilled him. I don't remember falling. The sun was starting to dip behind the cliffs. Shadows stretched across the wall. They had to move, fast. Adrian set up an emergency lower. He was experienced, calm, but deep down, he was terrified. He clipped her in, every knot, every carabiner, checked, double-checked, and they began the descent. It took over 4 hours to get back to the valley floor. Emily drifted in and out of lucidity, but she held on. When they finally touched the ground, she collapsed. Rescue teams were already waiting. She was rushed to the hospital. Concussion, cuts, a bruised spine. But she would survive. She spent weeks recovering. The memory of that day came back slowly, fragmented, like shattered glass. She would eventually return to El Capitan, and later, she would complete the 24-hour free climb she had set out to do. But something had changed. She once said, "The fall taught me that I am not invincible, that fear is real, and that sometimes survival is the most important summit you can reach." The Mount Hood tragedy. A storm at the summit. In May of 2002, a group of climbers neared the summit of Mount Hood, Oregon's tallest peak. The weather was clear, the path was known, but within hours, 3 were dead. 1 was missing, and the rest were trapped on a freezing mountainside with no way down. They were experienced, well prepared. 9 climbers, a mix of mountain guides and clients, part of a climbing school group attempting a summit push. Mount Hood isn't Everest, but it's dangerous. A dormant volcano with steep, icy slopes, fast-changing weather, and a history of tragedy. They began in the early morning, headlamps glowing like fireflies against the dark slope. The snow beneath their boots was firm, perfect for climbing. The summit was less than an hour away. They moved in roped teams, tied together, steady, confident. But above them, the sky was changing. Without warning, clouds rolled in, thick, heavy, swallowing the sun. Temperatures dropped, winds rose. Within minutes, visibility was nearly zero. They stopped, trying to assess. One of the guides, falling behind while checking conditions, lost sight of the others. Then came the worst-case scenario. The snow beneath them, solid minutes before, gave way. 3 climbers fell into a crevasse hidden under the surface. A 20-foot drop. Sudden. Brutal. Ropes snapped. One of them, a 30-year-old client, broke her leg instantly. Another was unconscious, and the storm was just beginning. The group split. Some tried to descend to get help. Others stayed, desperately trying to rescue the fallen. But the wind was now 50 miles per hour. Snow swirled sideways. Temperatures dropped below freezing. They were at 10,000 feet, exposed, soaked, losing strength. Cell service was gone. They had one hope, a new emergency beacon system called RECO, experimental, barely tested. One climber turned it on and prayed. That signal reached the National Guard. A Black Hawk helicopter was scrambled, despite the blizzard. But reaching them was nearly impossible. Winds battered the aircraft. Visibility was zero. Time was running out. Meanwhile, on the mountain, the fallen woman was dying. Hypothermia set in. Her skin turned pale, then blue. Her breathing slowed. Another climber tried to wrap her in a bivy sack, but his fingers were numb. He could barely tie a knot. Then, a sound. Distant. Thunderous. The helicopter. It hovered above them, barely staying in the air. A pararescue team jumped out, straight into the storm. They reached the crevasse. One by one, they began pulling bodies out. The woman with the broken leg was already gone. Another climber died minutes later from exposure, and a third, the team leader, vanished into the white, falling off the ridge during the chaos. His body would be found days later. The rest, frostbitten, exhausted, and half-conscious, were airlifted off the mountain. It was one of the deadliest accidents in Mount Hood's recent history. Mount Hood still stands, still draws climbers, still hides its dangers beneath beauty. One of the survivors later said, "The mountain didn't kill my friends. The decisions did. The storm just didn't care either way."